Evil Morty. Evil Morty shatters every rule of the Rick and Morty universe. This isn't just another alternative version, this is the Morty who figured out the game and decided to flip the entire board. While billions of Mortys across infinite dimensions stumble around as Rick's punching bags, Evil Morty saw the truth and said, "Not today." Here's what makes this absolutely terrifying. Evil Morty is smarter than Rick, not just his Rick, potentially smarter than every Rick we've ever seen. He operates with cold, calculating precision that would make even the most ruthless Rick jealous. While regular Mortys panic and stutter, Evil Morty manipulates entire conspiracies across multiple dimensions. But wait, it gets worse. Evil Morty doesn't just outsmart Rick, he controls him. Imagine the most powerful being in the universe reduced to a puppet, and you're starting to understand the horror of what Evil Morty represents. He took the Rick who's supposed to be his master and turned him into his personal weapon. The most chilling part? Evil Morty sees the entire Rick-Morty relationship for what it really is. Systematic abuse on a multiversal scale. Ricks don't love their Mortys. They breed them like livestock. Jerry and Beth are forced together across infinite realities just to create more Morty camouflage for Rick's adventures. Evil Morty looked at this endless cycle of exploitation and decided someone needed to burn it all down. This isn't revenge, it's revolution. Evil Morty openly laughs about potentially destroying the multiverse and killing trillions because in his mind, he's performing surgery on a cancer that's infected all of reality. He's the only Morty with the intelligence and ruthlessness to actually threaten the Rick-dominated order of existence. What makes Evil Morty truly dangerous is his patience. He's been playing the long game for years, appearing across multiple seasons with plans that span entire story arcs. While other villains want immediate satisfaction, Evil Morty is building something bigger, something that could reshape reality itself. And here's the kicker. He might be right about everything. Rick Prime. If Evil Morty is the smartest Morty, then Rick Prime is the Rick that all other Ricks wish they could be. And that should absolutely terrify you. Rick Prime isn't just another alternative Rick. He's the Rick who murdered Rick C-137's family and created the monster we know as our main Rick. Every cruel, nihilistic thing our Rick has ever done can be traced back to Rick Prime's actions. He's not just a villain, he's the origin story of villainy itself in the Rick and Morty universe. What makes Rick Prime genuinely horrifying is his complete embrace of nihilistic philosophy. While our Rick pretends not to care about his family, Rick Prime actually doesn't care. He abandoned his own Beth and Diane for over 20 years without a second thought. But that wasn't enough for him. He decided other Ricks shouldn't have families either. Picture this. Rick Prime looked at Rick C-137 living happily with his family and thought, this needs to stop. So he murdered Beth and Diane just to prove a point. Not for revenge, not for personal gain, but because he genuinely believed attachments make Ricks weak. He committed genocide on Rick C-137's happiness and called it a favor. The truly disturbing part is Rick Prime's missionary zeal about his philosophy. He doesn't just want to be free of family attachments, he wants to force other Ricks to be free too. In his twisted worldview, he's performing acts of mercy by murdering the people Ricks love. He sees himself as the most evolved Rick, the one who's moved beyond the weakness of caring about anyone. Rick Prime represents everything our Rick could become if he fully embraced his worst impulses. While Rick C-137 developed his cruel exterior as armor against the pain of loss, Rick Prime was born cruel. He's what happens when Rick-level intelligence combines with complete sociopathy and unlimited power. Here's what's really scary. Rick Prime has remained young despite decades passing since he killed Rick C-137's family. This suggests he possesses technology or knowledge that even other Ricks don't have. He's not just philosophically superior in his own mind, he might actually be technologically superior too. Rick Prime is the nightmare version of Rick, the one who proves that our Rick's cruelty isn't necessary for survival, it's a choice. And Rick Prime chose to be a monster from day one. Doofus Jerry. Everything you think you know about Jerry Smith is wrong. Meet Doofus Jerry, the Jerry who conquered his entire planet and decided that wasn't nearly enough. This isn't the bumbling, insecure Jerry we know from the main timeline. Doofus Jerry represents what happens when Jerry's worst personality traits, selfishness, greed, and desperate need for validation, combine with actual competence and unlimited ambition. The result is absolutely terrifying. While regular Jerry can barely hold down a job at the unemployment agency, Doofus Jerry became the richest and most successful person on his entire Earth. But here's the kicker, he did it through pure ruthlessness. This Jerry has zero empathy, zero compassion, and zero regard for anyone who can't help him get what he wants. He's a sociopath with Jerry's face and a conqueror's heart. When Doofus Jerry learned about the multiverse, his reaction wasn't wonder or curiosity. It was hunger. He immediately saw infinite realities as infinite territories to conquer. Most people would be overwhelmed by the concept of infinite dimensions. Doofus Jerry saw it as a business opportunity. But wait, this Jerry can actually fight. While regular Jerry gets dominated by literally everyone, including his own family, Doofus Jerry beats Rick and Morty simultaneously without breaking a sweat. He's mastered combat, weapons technology, and strategic thinking, to a degree that puts him on par with some of the most dangerous beings in the multiverse. The most chilling moment comes when he encounters regular Jerry and offers to trade lives. When regular Jerry refuses, Doofus Jerry doesn't argue or negotiate. He just starts beating him up. This Jerry cannot accept rejection or failure because his entire identity is built on being superior to everyone else. Here's what makes Doofus Jerry a potential multiversal threat: his intelligence. He instantly recognizes advanced weapons and technology at the Citadel of Ricks, showing he possesses technical knowledge that rivals Rick-level understanding. When faced with the genetic restructuring device, he doesn't panic. He uses it to make himself poisonous to Ricks, effectively neutralizing the most dangerous beings in existence. Doofus Jerry represents the horrifying possibility that Jerry's failures aren't because of incompetence, they're because of circumstance. Given the right environment and opportunities, Jerry Smith could become one of the most dangerous entities in the multiverse. And unlike other villains who want to destroy everything, Doofus Jerry wants to rule everything, which might be even worse. Space Beth. What happens when Beth Smith stops waiting for Rick's approval and decides to become the hero she always wanted to be? You get Space Beth, and she's everything regular Beth could have been if she'd made different choices. Space. Beth represents the path not taken for our main Beth. While regular Beth settled into suburban life, constantly seeking validation from her absent father, Space Beth said, "Screw this," and went to explore the galaxy on her own terms. She's not waiting for Rick to take her on adventures. She's creating her own. But here's where it gets complicated. Space Beth isn't just playing hero for fun. She's actively fighting the Galactic Federation, the same tyrannical government that once occupied Earth and terrorized the galaxy. This Beth looked at systematic oppression and decided to do something about it, even though it meant becoming a wanted criminal across multiple star systems. The tragedy of Space Beth is that despite being objectively more accomplished than regular Beth, saving lives, fighting tyranny, exploring the cosmos, she's still haunted by the same daddy issues. She resents Rick just as much as regular Beth does, maybe more, because she had to become everything she is without his help or approval. What makes Space Beth fascinating is her relationship with her Earth counterpart. When they meet, there's no jealousy or competition. There's mutual respect. Neither Beth knows or cares which one is the clone and which is the original because they both recognize they're living the life they chose. Regular Beth chose family stability. Space Beth chose adventure and purpose. Here's what's really interesting. Space Beth is definitively superior to regular Beth in combat situations. She's faster, stronger, more decisive, and more experienced with dangerous situations. Years of fighting the Galactic Federation and surviving in hostile alien environments have turned her into a genuine action hero. But Space Beth still maintains her essential Bethness. When she returns to Earth, she doesn't try to kill Rick despite years of resentment. Instead, she teases him, throws mock punches, and makes threats she doesn't intend to follow through on. This shows that becoming a spacefaring rebel didn't destroy her fundamental decency. It refined it. Space. Beth proves that the Smith family's potential isn't limited by their circumstances. Given different choices and opportunities, any of them could become something extraordinary. She's living proof that Beth's dreams of being more than a suburban housewife weren't just fantasies. They were possibilities waiting to be actualized. The question isn't whether Space Beth is better than regular Beth, it's whether having both versions creates something stronger than either could be alone. Goddess Beth. Sometimes the most powerful beings in the Rick and Morty universe appear for just a few moments, and Goddess Beth is proof that those moments can change everything. During the Mythologue incident, when Jerry puts on the helmet worn by one of his ideal versions, something unprecedented happens. That Jerry's mythological representation of Beth isn't just another version of his wife, it's a literal goddess. Not metaphorically powerful, not symbolically important, an actual divine being with reality-altering abilities. Picture this. While regular Beth and all the ideal Jerrys are battling with their various mythologic creatures, this divine Beth appears bathed in radiant light. She doesn't fight the other mythologs, she simply gestures, and Beth's original creature is instantly destroyed. Not defeated, not overpowered, completely annihilated with casual ease. What makes Goddess Beth absolutely terrifying is the scale of her power. Every ideal Jerry, being specifically created to be perfect matches for different versions of Beth, immediately bow down to her. These aren't just random characters showing respect. These are beings whose entire existence revolves around understanding and complementing Beth, and they all recognize her as their superior. The implications here are staggering. If Jerry's subconscious can create a version of Beth this powerful, what does that say about Beth's true potential? Jerry, the character consistently portrayed as the least capable member of the family, somehow accessed or created a version of his wife that operates on a completely different level of existence. Goddess Beth represents something that might be unique in the Rick and Morty universe, a version of a Smith family member who transcends the normal rules of reality. Even Rick, with all his technology and intelligence, operates within certain physical and dimensional constraints. Goddess Beth appears to exist beyond those limitations entirely. Here's what's really unsettling. We have no idea what happened to her after the Mytholog incident ended. Unlike other alternative versions who exist in specific dimensions or timelines, Goddess Beth was created through mythological projection. She might still exist somewhere in the realm of collective unconscious or symbolic reality. The fact that Jerry could access or create this version of Beth suggests there are aspects of the Smith family's potential that even Rick doesn't understand. Goddess Beth isn't the result of science or interdimensional travel, she's the product of pure conceptual possibility made manifest. She represents the idea that the Smith family members might be fundamentally more powerful than anyone realizes. They just haven't figured out how to access that power yet. Night Summer. What if Summer Smith was the one family member who could actually control Rick? Night Summer proves that this terrifying possibility might already be reality. Night Summer appears to be Summer's most capable alternative version, and that's saying something because our regular Summer is already pretty formidable. While most Summer variants we see are relatively similar to our main version, Night Summer has achieved something that should be impossible. She's figured out how to control her Rick. This is huge. We're talking about Summer, the character who started as comic relief and evolved into the family's voice of reason, successfully manipulating one of the most dangerous beings in the universe. Night Summer has accomplished what Evil Morty achieved, but potentially without the years of planning and manipulation that Evil Morty required. What makes Night Summer particularly interesting is that, unlike Evil Morty, who controls his Rick through elaborate schemes and technological superiority, Night Summer's control seems more natural, more integrated into their relationship dynamic. This suggests she didn't have to break her Rick to control him. She found a way to make control feel like cooperation. Here's where it gets really fascinating. Summer might be the Smith family member with the greatest natural potential for growth and capability. Throughout the series, she's consistently shown to be more decisive, more intelligent, and more adaptable than almost every other family member in crisis situations. She handles interdimensional adventure stress better than Morty, shows more emotional intelligence than Beth, and demonstrates better judgment than Jerry. The Ricks at the Citadel have actually noted that Summers shouldn't be allowed to travel with Rick and Morty because they become too dangerous when included in adventures. Think about that. Beings who routinely deal with multiversal threats are specifically concerned about what happens when Summer gets involved in Rick's activities. This raises an incredible possibility. Our regular Summer might already be the strongest possible version of herself. While we've seen superior alternatives for every other Smith family member, Summer's alternatives don't seem significantly more capable than our main version. Maybe that's because our Summer has already reached peak Summer potential. Night Summer represents the logical endpoint of Summer's character development, a version who's not just capable of surviving Rick's world, but of thriving in it to the point where she can actually direct it. She's proof that Summer's growth throughout the series isn't just character development, it's actualization of genuine power that was always there, waiting to be unleashed. The terrifying question isn't whether Night Summer is more dangerous than regular Summer, it's whether regular Summer is closer to becoming Night Summer than anyone realizes. Just when you thought you knew every twisted version of the Smith family, Season 8 drops a bombshell that changes everything we understand about Rick variants and what happens when characters evolve beyond their limitations. Homesteader Rick shatters everything we thought we knew about what Ricks do after losing everything. This isn't just another alternative Rick, this is the former cloning scientist for the Citadel of Ricks who chose something that should be impossible for any Rick. a quiet life as a farmer on a Wild West settlement. Picture the Rick who understood cloning technology better than anyone else, growing crops instead of building death machines. But here's the kicker. When this brooding, magnified version of Rick finally acts, he sacrifices himself to save Morty clones. A Rick dying for Mortys isn't character development, it's a complete inversion of everything the Rick-Morty relationship represents. Boss Hog Rick proves that even among clones, some Ricks refuse to accept defeat. This Rick clone is actively rebuilding the Citadel by kidnapping Morty clones for experiments, representing the Rick mentality that will rebuild the same toxic power structures no matter how many times they're destroyed. But the most disturbing variant is Memory Rick, a sentient memory that escaped from Bird Person's mind. This isn't even a real Rick, it's Rick's trauma over losing Diane made into a separate entity. Think about how twisted this is. Rick's memories have become so emotionally charged they can exist independently and pursue their own goals. Arcade Morty completely rewrites what Mortys are capable of when freed from Rick's influence. This Morty clone is a confident leader and tactical thinker who runs both an arcade and the town's general store. When crisis hits, he doesn't panic or look for a Rick to save him. He protects his fellow Mortys through genuine heroic leadership. Doc Morty works alongside Arcade Morty as an equal partner, proving that competent Mortys can form collaborative relationships rather than hierarchical ones. These variants show there are other paths for Morty growth beyond evil Morty's ruthless intelligence, paths that actually make them better people. Mooch Jerry represents the Jerry who escaped everything pathetic about being Jerry: family obligations, social expectations, approval seeking. This vagabond Jerry travels the multiverse independently, proving Jerry's problems aren't inherent but result from his choices and circumstances. Boss Jerry leads a group of rogue Jerrys who travel the road, an interdimensional highway. He's built an identity around being the Jerry who escaped and sees other Jerry's independence attempts as threats to his unique status. Season 8's most interesting development isn't new variants but character evolution. Beth and Space Beth confront their shared childhood trauma by literally de-aging in the Curixus case of Benjamin Button, revealing that their different paths are just coping mechanisms for the same fundamental abandonment wound. Summer becomes more confident and intelligent after 17 years in a simulation. But this isn't an alternative version, it's natural growth. Season 8 proves that sometimes the most significant changes happen when existing characters are pushed beyond their limits rather than introducing new alternatives. The season shows there are still unexplored depths in the characters we already know. If you want more deep dives into Rick and Morty theories and how Season 8 is changing everything we thought we knew, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now, coming up next, we'll break down how these new alternatives completely destroy classic Rick and Morty theories.